10th day of the Islamic month of Muharram, Muslims around the world observe a holiday known as Ashura. But if you travel across different communities, you'll witness two radically different ways of marking the exact same date. In Sunni Muslim communities, the day is often marked by quiet fasting. It is observed as a moment of reflection and gratitude, looking back on a history of divine deliverance. But for Shia Muslims, Ashura is a day of intense public mourning. The streets fill with processions, men in black shirts striking their chests in collective grief, and neighbors distributing massive quantities of a communal stew called halim. It is rare for a single day on the calendar to encompass both a celebration of salvation and a collective mourning of a massacre. Understanding how these two traditions coexist requires looking at two historical figures separated by over 1,000 years, Prophet Musa and Imam Hussein, the absolute power of an empire, and both reached a point where they refused to bow. The first part of this story takes place in ancient Egypt. The pharaoh held absolute authority, physically enslaving the Israelites and demanding total submission to his will. Fast forward centuries to the Umayyad Caliphate, and a similar dynamic emerged under the ruler Yazid. He demanded unquestioning political allegiance from his subjects, while many historians say his reign began to dismantle the moral foundations of the empire. In Egypt, the prophet Musa was given a mission to lead his people out of physical bondage and escape the pharaoh's reach. In the Umayyad Empire, Imam Hussein, grandson of the prophet Muhammad, refused to pledge allegiance, staging a public protest against what he viewed as the spiritual enslavement of the community. When this protest led Hussein to Karbala, he was at a staggering disadvantage. His camp consisted of roughly 72 family members and companions. Against them, the empire deployed a massive military force. Up to 30,000 soldiers were sent to crush the group. For both Musa and Hussein, the pressure of the empire eventually made a life-or-death confrontation inevitable. As Musa led his people out of Egypt, they reached the shores of the Red Sea, a geographic barrier that appeared to be a dead end. But the water parted. The sea became the physical instrument of salvation for the Israelites and the destruction of the pursuing army. Centuries later at Karbala, the focus remained on the water. Hussein's camp sat in the desert heat near the Euphrates River. The Umayyad army used their numbers to establish a total military blockade, cutting off Hussein's only source of water. This lasted for days under the desert sun. Dehydration set in for everyone in the camp, including Hussein's infant son, before the Umayyads launched their final massacre. In ancient Egypt, water was the miraculous tool of deliverance. At Karbala, an empire manipulated that same resource into a weapon, used to weaken a camp of 72 before they were killed. These two outcomes are why Muslims observe this day so differently. Sunni communities fast on Ashura to emulate Musa, turning his survival into an annual act of gratitude. Meanwhile, Shia communities respond to the deprivation of Hussein by distributing free food and water. They take the memory of forced starvation and turn it into a collective act of charity. In many regions, this memory is preserved through tazia, passion plays, where actors reenact the combat and sacrifice, ensuring the emotional weight is never lost. These modern rituals are the physical echoes of those two moments, one celebrating freedom and the other mourning the brutal cost of refusing to surrender it. In the immediate aftermath, the physical results could not have been more different. Musa led his people to a new life, while Hussein was killed and his surviving family members were taken as prisoners of war. Among those captives was Hussein's sister, Zainab. She was marched across the desert to the capital in Damascus, standing in the very court of the ruler who had ordered her brother's death. But even in chains, Zainab did not submit. She delivered a fearless public sermon that dismantled Yazid's political legitimacy, speaking directly to the tyrant in front of his own court. That testimony, combined with the shock of Hussein's death, triggered a series of uprisings that eventually dismantled Umayyad authority from the inside out. Musa and Hussein met their oppressors with the same refusal to yield. While one led his people to a new home, the other was buried in the desert. Both demonstrated that an empire's power ends where a person's willingness to submit stops. Centuries later, these rituals are not just about what happened in Egypt or Iraq. They are about the enduring memory of those who refuse to break.